Hey, Alyson Stanfield here with the Art Biz, and I am so excited to share this episode with you because my guest today has been producing a digital magazine monthly that promotes her art and a whole lot of other things. But it's like 128 pages. It's not just a little thing, it's a big freaking deal. And she does it every month. And here's the thing. She loves it. She has so much fun, and she says it is her best marketing tool. Please enjoy this conversation with Alyson Sheldrake. Hi, Alyson. Welcome to the Art Biz.
Hello, Alyson. It's always nice to meet someone else with the same name, and we spell our names the same as well, which is quite unusual. Which is
Exactly.
good.
My mom. We can blame my mom for my spelling. I don't know who spelled yours, but you are the first Alyson that of any spelling that I've had on the show.
Cool. I know a few other Alysons, but not with the Y. I blame my dad. He loved June Allyson, the actress, when he was a young boy. So I think I'm named after her.
Oh,
That's a long time.
I love it. You have been and done a lot of things in your life. Could you give us a brief background of everything?
Yeah, well, if you go back, and the thing I think that ties everything together is I did arts and English literature for A level. Then I went off and did a sports degree and then trained as a teacher. And then I joined the police in the UK. So I have this woven into my background is my art and my love of books and writing right back from a young age. And then went off and did policing for about 13 years. And then I left and went into education and ended up right at the top of the tree as a director of education in charge of about 130 schools, which left me no time whatsoever to paint, to draw, to write, or to do all those things that actually are in my heart and what I really wanted to do. I do the very odd art class or course and then straight back to work and put all the paints away again. So that's pretty much my life till I hit 42. My husband is older. So the minute he retired from the police, he did full 31 years. Our dream of living abroad could actually come true. And we lock, stock and barrel, sold everything, moved out to live here in the Algarve in Portugal. And I've been here, 13 years permanently now. And the dream of being an artist could actually come true at that point because I set up a studio at home and I took it quite seriously right from the start. I saw it as another career change. I wanted to be professional right from the start and see this as another career move. And I think about 270 paintings since that day and about 12 exhibitions and about 7 books published as well. So yeah, I've every 10 years or so, I seem to change career completely and do something else. So it's been quite good fun, I have to say.
Well, this is just an aside, but why did you choose there to live?
When we got together, we had a bucket list of places in the world we'd never been that we wanted to go to. So we did things like Hong Kong, South Africa, Cape Town, Venice, the places that you've always wanted to see. And we jokingly said we had a motto that said, never go back to the same place twice. And then we literally, friends of friends, rented us this little fishing cottage, tiny little fishing village in the Algarve. And we fell in love, completely besotted with this little place. And we came back, I think it was 7 times in the next 2 years, which completely blew our never go back to the same place twice out the water. And we just sat having a coffee one day, I remember, in the square, and we both at the same time said to each other, I could live here. It was a really defining moment of, luckily, we both felt the same way. So we literally sold up everything in the UK, bought a house here, and then waited for a few years just still renting in the UK before we could actually move here. So it was a long-held dream, I think, that we had, and we made it come true, which is good.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Okay, so you're an artist and an author and a writer. I'm going to separate author and writer because you have how many books published now?
7 in total so far, all self-published. Yes.
Oh.
The last one's the bestseller. It was the story of our rescued Spanish water dog, Cat the dog. And the others have done well, but this one has blown me out. I've been amazed at just how popular it's been and how well it's done, which is really exciting. So it's good.
Why,
Fun.
just for those people who are listening who are dog people, why do you think it's a bestseller? Why do you think it has done so well?
I think partly I wrote Well, I wrote the first few books I wrote were actually a kind of travel memoirs about moving to live in the Algarve. And obviously, we'd rescued Cat, our little Spanish water dog, and she is in the stories. She weaves her way through all of those books. But I wanted to tell her story, and we didn't know anything about her life before she was rescued. But she was in a terrible state, as so many rescue dogs are. So I think that opened up people's hearts. And I wrote it as if Cat herself was speaking. It's her story all the way through. And I've had so many people tell me that it really meant so much to them that they looked at their own dogs differently and wondered how much they were actually thinking about them and what they could actually understand. And it was, it was the book I was meant to write, I think, very much so. And it's been really lovely hearing from so many people that enjoyed it. And I get so many people saying, is there a happy ending? And I finished the book with her still alive with us, which I felt was really important, that there was a happy ending to that rescue story. But it's a universal story, isn't it? The rescue that turns somebody's life around. And we all have that a bit in our lives in different ways, don't we?
Yeah.
We've all got those stories somewhere.
Yeah, and we all have a lot of rescued animals. I do think it's interesting that the dog's name is Cat, but we should say the cat starts with the K, and it looks like a lovely book. So congratulations on your success with
Thank
that.
you.
How do you
Thank you.
balance your art and writing?
I think that's why I mentioned my A-levels right back at the start there, because I finally feel that they've both come together. They weave a path quite nicely side by side. I like doing both painting and writing. And it just feels like those two creative strands that have always been inside me have come out, and I've let them blossom, and they work well together, I think. I don't ever think, oh, I've got to write, oh, I've got to paint. I'm excited by both those ideas.
It sounds like it just comes naturally, but I think I'm really interested in it on a practical level. Like day to day, do you do both? Do you have some days for writing, some days for art, or do they just flow?
We talk a lot about having a muse, don't we? Or having that sense of a real purpose that drives you into creating. And I found certainly with Cat the dog, I would wake up at 5 o'clock every morning with the next chapter ready in my head. And I would come straight down to my office. Nobody would talk to me. My husband's still fast asleep. And I would just sit and write. And then I would have breakfast, walk the dog, come home, and then start painting. So those two things have different timings, I think. But I think the most important thing is that you go with that instinct that bursts out from you that's got to be done. So if I start a painting, I want to finish it, but it's there and it's on the easel and I need to finish. And the same when I'm writing, there's a chapter and it wants to come out. So I just let it go. I think we get in the way sometimes of our creativity. Does that sound daft, or do you know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean, but I want you to explain that further.
I think we can force things too much. And I think sometimes if you just settle and rest and allow time and ideas to come to life, and you just get that feeling sometimes like, this is it, this is the one, this is what I need to paint, or this is how I need to paint that, or this is how I need to approach that book that I'm writing. And I think the less we get in the way of that, the better, to be honest. But I think sometimes we can force things or push things too hard.
Yeah. It sounds like you have created this flow and that you probably need both the writing and the painting to feel whole and to feed one another almost.
Yeah, I think so. And the excitement's there, isn't it? When you've done a painting, you've done it for a client and they pay up and they take the painting away and they're excited to hang it on the wall and send you the photo of it in their lounge or wherever. Or I get so many emails and letters from people that have read my books and love them, especially Cat the dog. And that's a real boost for me. It's a really great feeling to know that you've created something that somebody else responds to and loves as well. I think that's why we all create, isn't it? To have that expression back that you've done something and you've impacted somebody else.
Right.
It's lovely.
Yeah. It's a special kind of privilege to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So speaking of writing, you have this, and I'm going to use air quotes, newsletter. I love the tagline. The tagline is the newsletter that thinks it's a magazine, ! Which is so true because the last one, the July, as of this recording, July 2024, had 128 digital pages, which is quite a bit longer than a newsletter. It says it's full of art, photography, books, reviews, events, interviews, rescue dogs, authors, and news of the beautiful Algarve in Portugal. Am I pronouncing that right? The Algarve
Algarve. Algarve, yes.
in
It is not an
Portugal.
easy word. Lots of people struggle with it. It's Algarve. Yeah.
Algarve,
You can
yes.
pause after the
I want to mix the G and the L, I think. So it is really so diverse. And I just want to know how this came to be.
Yeah, it's grown a bit, hasn't it? Okay, so about 10, 11 years ago, it started out as a little 4-page A4 PDF that we sent to about 36 friends when we moved out here, because it was just a quick way of keeping in touch. This is my latest art. This is what we're doing. My husband took up photography quite seriously, and he's now a professional photographer. So every month there were photos we could share, and it grew basically from there. And I think because lots of people have asked me, and I've said, don't panic. You don't have to start with 120 pages every month. It's okay to do 4 pages every 2 months or 3 months. But it just grew. And I think, yeah, for about 8 years, it stayed PDF version. And then I started playing around with actually turning it into more of a magazine flip page format, which readers seem to really like. And it grew from there. And I love doing it, I have to say. I really enjoy it. And I get lots of feedback from people saying how much they enjoy reading it every month. So that's great
So
as well.
it sounds like it started out as a way for you to keep in touch with people in your life after you moved away. And it seems like now there's probably some of that as well, but it's also a way for you to be connected to your community.
Very much so. And gently. I think that's the key thing for me. I've talked to other authors and other artists, and I think a lot of them say, well, I know I need a newsletter. I'm supposed to have a newsletter on time. I'm supposed to contact people and keep in touch with them. But what do I write every month? And I kind of giggle and go, well, I just have a problem with stopping every month, not actually filling the pages. I think I looked at it differently. I thought, well, we've got our work. I've got my art, Dave's photos, and obviously my books. You don't want to have a newsletter every month that just screams, look at me, here's the latest book, or come and buy my work. I tend to unsubscribe to those pretty quickly. So I knew I wanted to create something different, something gentler, and something that connected me with all the other people that we've met or know, not just in the Algarve, but worldwide as well, in terms of artists and other authors, and to be able to share their work. Because quietly and gently then, they obviously every month, if I feature an artist, say, they'll share it and they'll share the link with it. And I get new subscribers from that. It's a nice, gentle way of keeping in touch with people, but giving them a lot of good content that hopefully they enjoy reading. That's my basic aim for it, is to entertain and to inform people, and to quietly and gently go, oh, and don't forget, I do paintings, and don't forget, I write books. But without forcing that, I think I didn't want to do that. It seems to fit quite well, the way I do it, and people seem to really enjoy it. So it's good.
You said it so many times that I have to emphasize the words quietly and gently. And so it sounds to me like a comfortable way for you to do self-promotion, even though you would never call it that, probably.
Well, quietly and gently, no, that's that is a bottom line. That is one of the reasons for doing it, obviously. But I think I've met so many other companies. We link up now with so many other companies. So we have a recipe every month that's written and sent to me by someone who does a food magazine. We have Portuguese language, a little lesson every month, but that's sent to me by 2 guys, Rui and Joel, who do an amazing practice Portuguese website and program. So they quietly get to promote their program. I get content. I don't have to pay for anything. They send it. We support each other. And I have a really big news and media site in the Algarve who share it every month. And I'm on a radio show every month. I have a slot first Thursday of every month. I'm on the Good Morning Portugal show, and they give me half an hour to talk about this month's edition. So I'm promoting them, they promote me, and when I do a lot for charities as well out here. And that's always really nice that we can link up with different groups that are fundraising for animals or cancer charities, all sorts of things. But we've just met so many people out here. It seemed really nice to be able to bring them together and to give them a platform as well, really, which is it's good. But
absolutely. So you mentioned the Portuguese language site, but I think it's important to say that this publication is in English.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And
That's the odd Portuguese word I throw in there just to keep people on their toes
yes.
now, but it's all in English. It's fine.
And your interview every month, is that in English or Portuguese?
No, always in English.
Always
Yeah,
in
no,
English.
it's okay. You might 99.9% of the content will be in English. I mean, even the Portuguese lesson, you've got the English translation of the words. And we do things like, all the words for going to a restaurant to eat out, and just useful, easy phrases for people coming here. It's just grown, and it's quite nice how it's grown quite gently. And I interview different artists and different authors. I'm always keen to see how other people work and how they create. So it's a good way of doing it.
What's the frequency?
Monthly, believe it or not, 120 pages now every month. That's It
Okay.
doesn't seem to take me too long. Everyone keeps asking me, but I work with InDesign, Adobe, and I have obviously templates for a lot of the pages. So a lot of it, I send off questions to everyone and they send back answers and photos. And then it's just really a case of creating pages and the content for people to read. It's just another creative outlet for me.
Like you needed another one.
Yeah, keeps me out of trouble. Maybe.
I do want to get into more questions about that, but what is your circulation?
Well, I think we reach about 17,000 now because of the other like news agencies and people that also share it for us. And I have a couple of really big Facebook groups who devour it every month as well. So it's actually quite hard to really, I don't think you can ever quite get your numbers, can you? You can have a rough idea and roughly how many copies, but then it gets shared everywhere. I'm not very precious about it. So the link's there. If people want to share it, they can. It's free. You can subscribe, but there's no charge for it. So I'm happy that people just share it as widely as they can.
Why do that instead of a newsletter or blog?
I started with a newsletter, remember, and we had a blog when we first moved out here. It was a kind of award-winning blog that we had over 100,000 views a year on it. It was crazy for a while. But I just felt it naturally grew into a better format, I think, for me to share things. It was this magazine kind of format. And I think people like it because they can download it. I've got lots of people that say, oh, we make a cup of tea and we get a plate of biscuits or a big piece of cake and we sit down and we just enjoy it. And I just think, oh, that's great, isn't it? That I'm creating something people can just take maybe half an hour out of their lives and just chill out for a while and read. And I don't think magazines and things like that will ever go out of fashion, really. People like to sit down and thumb the pages, don't they, and flick through articles. So hopefully I'll create enough different content. There's something there for everyone to enjoy, hopefully.
Yes. Well, I'm sure there's something for everyone to enjoy in it. So you've been doing this for more than 10 years. Obviously, you get some kind of, besides satisfaction, you must be seeing some kind of results from it. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I said at the beginning. The baseline is that I am an artist, a professional career that I want to be able to promote. But I think I found there's lots of crossover. So I have lots of people that have read my books, then email me and say, we'd love a painting, and vice versa. And Dave's been out, it was quite amusing. He's photographed several houses on the Algarve and he's turned up and found my paintings on the wall, which is always quite amusing because he didn't know they were there. So I'm like, oh, well, something's working. And as I said, because we've got all the other agencies and companies and creatives who share it as well, then all the time I'm building and extending the network of people that hopefully can find out what we get up to. And we've had our work on lots of front covers of other magazines around the Algarve as a result. And obviously it picks up with things like Google. It's really good if people search for an Algarve artist or photographer. Dave quite often just gets a random email from someone. I Googled and saw your name. Can you come and photograph my property or do this event for me? So we know that it leads to other work, and it leads to it in quite a nice, as I said, gentle way. We're not forcing it. We're not pushing it. People find us, which is great. And other people recommend us, which is always a good bonus as well, isn't it? So it's good.
For sure. So do you accept advertising?
No, we don't have any paid advertising. I've always said that Snapshot, as we call it, is free and it always will be. And the whole idea of trying to set up advertising and getting money in and chasing up companies, I think it would change the feel too much of what we produce as content. I have some gentle adverts in there, like the Relish Portugal magazine that gives us the recipes. We have 2 pages for the recipe, and then the next page is always just a 1-page. Here's Relish Portugal. This is how you can find that magazine and read it. So we gently and quietly will promote and advertise other things, but only if they've quid pro quo, they've given us something, we give something back to them. But I don't think I'd ever want to take on paid advertising. I think it would change it. It would turn it into just another magazine if I'm not careful. Whereas I think people see it still as me and Dave and Zara, our new rescue dog, giving our kind of monthly, here's the world, according to the Sheldrakes. So we want to keep it like that, I think.
Yeah. It does have this feeling of some local publications that I know of that are like,
Mm.
you have an ad and you write an article for it. But what I love about this is you said quid pro quo, but it's obvious that you wouldn't want these things in there if they weren't the right fit. You're pretty particular about what goes in there, I suspect.
Yes, very. And because I'm not having adverts or having people pay, then I approach the companies and the artists and the authors that I want to interview. So I've interviewed some quite famous authors as well, which is quite cool as well. So I really enjoyed that. So it gives me an opening, like talking to you tonight. Those kind of things, it opens up different doors. And I've talked to lots of artists who get really stuck with how do I promote my work? And I always go, well, stop thinking about promoting your work. Who else could you promote that then might promote you? And who could you work with? Or things like, okay, we live in the Algarve, so obviously some of the content is going to be based on where we live, and lots of expats come in to live here or want advice. But I love reading books, so every month there are book reviews, and they're only the reviews of books that I love. They're only the ones that I'd give a 5-star rating to. I don't have to review anybody's book if I don't want to read it. So that gives me freedom, I think, to still be in charge, you're right, of the content. And I think people now expect a certain level of content from us. If I'm going to interview an author or an artist, hopefully the readers will go, oh, let's have a look. Oh, if Ali likes it, let's go and read that book, or let's find out more about that artist, because if she likes their work, then we probably will as well. So I think, yes, there's a certain status, I think, that goes with that hopefully people trust me that it's always going to be worth opening and reading. I certainly get lots of feedback. And we do a Ko-fi donation. That's about the only thing I've ever set up. And most months we get lunch out somewhere, which is quite nice, and a few cakes and coffees. And it's just a nice way if people have enjoyed reading it, they can say, thank you, go and have a coffee on us. I quite like that. But I'd never make a charge for the content.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't feel right, I don't think.
How many contributors do you have every month, or are you the primary writer?
I'm primary writer, yes, but I have other people who send me content. So the recipes, the language. I have a rescue dog every month that comes from our local rescue centre. They pick one of their dogs every month that needs rehoming, and we do a little feature on them. But I get lots of people contact me now saying, oh, is there any chance we could be in next month's Snapshot because we're doing this event, or we're fundraising for this? So that's quite nice to be able to say, yep, just send me the details and I'll add them in. And I share any other art exhibitions of other artists across the Algarve, and sometimes wider Portugal if it's a big artist, but mostly the Algarve. You have to draw a line, don't you? This bit of the map I can cover.
Yeah.
So I have lots of other artist friends across the Algarve who know they can send me their flyer or their press release, and I'll share it for them.
How much writing or editing do you have to do? I should say rewriting or editing do you have to do when people submit?
Well, I edit all of it, but I think because I've written and edited my own books, I'm used to doing that. And I have a lot of tools on my computer as a writer that I can quickly grab and check through content. And InDesign, I find quite a very intuitive, easy program to use now. I find it a good one to just drop things in and move things around quite easily. And I've created a design now that fits each month quite easily. So we do things like we interview a cat or a dog every month. Somebody's cat that we lost her a couple of years after the book came out, which was terrible. We lost our blessed girl. I miss her so much. But we keep her alive because she has cat's questions every month, and she interviews another cat or dog. And it's really funny because we ask silly questions, as you'd expect, and we get some brilliant answers back from people. Really good fun ones. So that's always but I love, so those kind of features, write themselves, really. They're good fun to bring together.
I want to talk to you since it's 120 pages every month. And because I love to talk about systems, I want to talk about how you actually approach this. Like, do you open a InDesign? I don't know InDesign. So do you open an InDesign project and just start putting things in there for next month? Or do you save a folder, a file folder another way? Like, where do you keep these ideas and writings?
Okay, so the most important thing you have is an Excel document, which literally lists columns for each of the articles and the month down the side. And I'm planning, I think Cat's Questions, we're up to about March next year, already booked. So I have a planner. So every time somebody contacts me, I can look and think, yes, I can slot you in December this year, or you can have to wait till March next year, but we can fit you in. So that's my most precious document, I think, is that planner, because it's got everything in there. I know exactly who I've interviewed, because it's really easy to lose track. Because you think, oh no, I've done them already.
Yes.
So you get to that point after doing it for a few years, you have to keep a good eye on what you've already done, because I'd hate to duplicate anything. And then InDesign, I've got to be honest, I take last month's, I copy it and I open it and create it as next month's name. And I literally start to fill in and take out pages. So each time I'm doing an article, I'll find last month's article on those pages and I'll just start to slot in and change to the next month's content. So the basic format, I think once in something like InDesign, once you've created your basic templates for each page, it's very easy to swap and change and improve your content very quickly. So I tend to do that. And I have folders for every month, and I have pro forma questions. Things like Cat's Questions, we ask the same questions to each dog or cat, because we get different answers every month. So we have like, what's your favourite food? Have you ever done anything naughty? And if you're a dog, what do zoomies feel like? Because dogs zoom around. It's quite fun
Cats
to watch.
zoom
And if it's a
too.
cat,
Can I just say that?
yeah,
Our
they
cat
do. So,
zooms.
yeah, I'm going to have to interview your cats one month for sure. So those kind of things, literally on about the second of each month, I've already planned. People know that I'm going to contact them because we've already slotted them in. So it's a matter of sending over the questions. And it's a pretty much a templated system now where here are the questions. This is how I'd like images back. This is what I'd like. Can you send it back by this date? I've never had anybody late. They send it back so quickly sometimes. They're like, okay, well, it might take me a couple of days to get to yours, but we'll get you there by the month. And then slotting in things like we always do some news articles. So I have a really good Algarve daily news site that let me share all their content free. So I just keep an eye on their Facebook page. And if a good article pops up, I think, oh, yes, that's one of the ones we'll share next month. Okay. So I tend to find the big features, there are 4 or 5 each month. They take me maybe half an hour to put together. And then all the little pieces around that, I'll just sit at the computer for 10 or 15 minutes with a cup of tea in the morning and do another little bit. And before I know it, I'm there and ready to fire it off to the subscribers on the first of each month. So it comes together quite easily. I quite enjoy it.
What day of the month do you send it? Is it the same day of the month every month?
Yes, first of the month.
The first of the month.
It's first of the month, it's ready to go. Yep,
don't
for
let
sure.
people wait.
Definitely.
All right. So the first of the month is when it's sent. When do you start creating that month's magazine? I'm calling it a magazine because it is not a newsletter.
Okay, you can call it a magazine. Everybody else does. I just call it my newsletter. Okay, so the July edition went out on the 1st of July. So the August edition I started on the 2nd of July. And I sent out so I only ever work that month's edition goes out, and then literally we start the next month. So because a lot of the content is news based or it's exhibitions, events. So I don't think you can do those too far ahead. But as I said, my Excel planner, I know who I'm going to be interviewing 3 or 4 months ahead because I've already contacted them and said, okay, you're October. I'll be in touch with you the 2nd of September with some questions. So they know in their diary that I'll be chasing them on that day.
Do you ever get anyone that contacts you last minute and says, could you make room for this?
Oh, yeah, quite often. That's the joy of running your own magazine. It doesn't matter how many pages I have. But that's why sometimes we're 115, we were 139 one month because somebody wanted a big extra feature putting in. It was like, yeah, no problem. I can do that for you. It's fine. There's nothing fixed, which is actually nice because I don't feel pressure. if we don't have a big interview 1 month on an artist, it doesn't matter. It's not, the pages aren't going to fall apart if that bit's missing.
Right.
So it's fine.
Okay. So you use a platform called Publu, Publu.
Public. Yeah, only recently, actually. I was with Publitas.com for years.
Okay.
I literally started, the first edition that went out 10 years ago was with Publitas, and it was a free site then. And they, over the years, have built their site up, and now you have to pay. But they always kept, they do that thing where they archive the original, don't you? And you never have to pay. You're always promised that you'll keep the program. But they started contacting me last year and saying, you're allowed about 10 gigabyte a month of actual traffic. You're on about 40 gigabyte, do you? And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I know I have lots of subscribers and lots of readers, but am I in trouble? And they said, you really should be going to the paid plan. And I thought, do you know, I've been with you for 10 years free, and I have all my content on your site. They promised it will stay on the site, no problem. So I looked around and I found Publu, and they will allow me 10 live editions for only €7 a month, whereas Publitas was outrageously expensive if you're a new subscriber. So I'm going to keep Publitas as my archive now. And then the odd person will find an old edition, because we've got the archive on my website. So you can always find all the editions on there. But I've gone with Publu, and I actually really like it because they create a really good magazine. It's got flip pages with the little, you can turn it off, but it makes a little flip noise
It
when you
does.
turn the
It makes a
page.
lovely little sound like you're turning the pages.
Yeah, and it's little things like that actually make it a bit more professional. It just stood out for me as a good site. So we've literally only just started with them a couple of months ago, but I'm really impressed with them. And I thought, well, 10 issues is fine because I can leave about 6 live on their site. And then every sort of 3 months, I'll archive the older editions onto Publitas. So, because if people want the old edition, they'll find it via my website. And we've got an archive page on there. I think most people, if they haven't read it within 6 months in their email, aren't going to read it. So I'm not too worried about that. It's one of those jiggle things that you have to work out sometimes, isn't it? You've got a great site, it works for years, and then suddenly it's like, oh, it's like we were with MailChimp for years, and now we moved to MailerLite for our subscribers. And again, much better site. Cost me a little bit more, but it's worth it, I think, to have that professional subscriber, two-factor authentication, all the things that you actually need to have a professional kind of email going out. So, and I get really good open rates of about 75% every month, which is pretty good.
Okay, you just said a lot that I
Sorry.
want to that I want to cover. I just want to make sure that I'm clear about, because this is something that you don't really think of, like where if you're going to create a 120-page magazine, it's not like a newsletter, like a quick email newsletter. It's not like that. You want to keep the content somewhere. And so the archives are I would think would be very important. And so are you saying that Publitas has the archives, or you're moving them off of Publitas?
No, I'm keeping all of my first 10 years
Okay.
are on Publitas. They're live, they're no problem. All I'm doing is using Publu for the new editions so every 3 or 6 months, I'll archive back into Publitas the older versions.
I see.
And then I won't get into trouble for the 10 to 40 gigabytes or whatever it is I'm in trouble for filling up their airwaves with. Because if somebody reads an archive, it's not going to be that many people a month. Whereas obviously I get thousands reading Snapshot every month. And Publu have got absolutely no limits to the amount of readers. So I thought it was for €7 a month. I thought that was a really good deal.
Yeah.
So it's a good one. So, but you're right. Yeah, you grow into learning how to do these things. I think as something like this grows, you have to start expanding your own kind of the backroom stuff that nobody sees, like MailerLite and the subscribers, and setting that up. You want that to be professional so that people, if they sign up, it's there and they're going to get it in their inbox. That's really important to me.
So the archives, back to the archives real quick. If I go to, let's say I just randomly chose February, my birthday month of 2018. I chose February of 2018. If I go to your site, and I don't know why in the world I would look up a magazine by a date, but if I go there, would I know what was in that edition if I go into the archives, or would you just would you have to tell someone, oh, go to this edition?
No, if you look on my website, if you go to the news where you sign up, scroll down a bit further, you'll see the link to the archive. And then the archive has literally each cover of every month. So you can quickly see the month by the cover and the date on the cover. And then if you jump in, the only way to really see the content is just go to the
Right.
contents page and you'll be able to see what's inside
Yeah.
there. I will never be able to have the time to create a full archive with every single name and month. That's not going to happen.
No.
So you can just have a bit more of a pick and mix to it. But yeah, all the covers are on there, so it's an easy one to find the month.
I would think the
Mm.
cover, most magazine covers have their top stories on the cover. Does yours? I don't even remember.
No, we just literally have one of Dave. Well, usually it's Dave's photograph. I used one of my paintings last month, but usually it's just one of Dave's photographs and just literally the snapshot header and the month and the year and nothing else.
But if
That's,
you
I think images are so good. I often get quite frustrated when you see a magazine and they've got all those headlines jumped over it, and you go, "Oh, I wanted to see
always
the
the
picture," and you covered it up.
Yeah.
And as it's his photo and he's a photographer, I think I'll be in a bit of trouble if I splash too much over the front. So we keep it nice and simple.
So always his photos.
Yeah, funnily enough, it's been quite a long while now, but I literally this month's got one of my paintings on the front, partly because he's been so busy working and it's been so hot that I couldn't get a decent photograph out of him last month because I like them to be current new photos and he just didn't come up with the goods for me this time. So I went, it's okay. I'll put one of my paintings on. And I thought, why haven't I done that before? Because I've had my paintings on several of the printed magazines that come out in the Algarve out here. So I know they work quite well on the cover. But
Yes,
yeah, I've never used one before. So yeah,
it does. It
that's
looks very nice. Why did you call it Snapshot?
I think partly because of the photographer sat beside me in the office. It just felt like a nice, easy name that summed up the fact we are creating quite little snapshots of our life out here and different art and books without going into huge detail about each of them. But obviously having a photographer sat beside me probably helped me decide that. Didn't used to be called that. It was just our newsletter. We didn't have a name for it at all, but it grew.
The newsletter that thinks it's a magazine without the name, right? But now with the name.
It's grown. It's quite fun. I guess I was interested because when you said about interviewing me, I was keen because lots of artists have contacted me and said, "Oh, I don't know what to do with the newsletter each month." And I just think hopefully I can give them some different ideas because you don't have to just talk about your art. In fact, it's not a good idea to just talk about your art because I was thinking, say you painted, I don't know, old buildings in a particular area. For me, I paint lots of the Algarve, so I can always talk about the town or the village that the painting came from. But say you painted old buildings, think about all the different ways. I always like mind map. I love doing that. So you put your painting in the middle and just to go mad for a while. Think of all the crazy ideas of all the things that might connect with that painting that you've done. And then think about all the different companies or the people that you might be able to contact, like a historian, or maybe there's a pub down the road from the building that you painted and they do a great lunch. Well, why not share that? And be a bit more sideways thinking, I think, I think we get channeled too much, both as an artist, I think I was. When I became an author as well, I expanded my thoughts because the authors, I think, are better at promoting themselves somehow because you've got a book, it's got a theme, it's got a story, and there are connections that you can make quite quickly with that story. Like obviously with Cat the Dog, it's about rescue animals. But whatever the story is, there are connections and links that you can make. And I think it's easier as an author to do that than it is as an artist sometimes because we get stuck. I've created a painting. Okay, but what it's about. And I always say to people, well, who buys your paintings? And what else do they like? Because we do this as authors very quickly. We say, well, you bought my book. What other books would that person like if they've enjoyed that book? And I think we need to do that with art a bit more and say, well, who's your audience? Who buys your work? Why do they buy it? What else do they like to do? And you then can start to create content in your newsletter or whatever you send out that actually gives them what they need. And I think that's the difference, isn't it? To look at it in a different way.
Absolutely.
Is to say, okay, let me try and provide for you something interesting, informative, engaging, hopefully enjoyable. And then quietly and gently and go, and here's some of my work. and do it that way around a bit more. So hopefully it might give some other artists and authors some ideas of different ways maybe of approaching it.
Absolutely. You are singing my song. And I love that you gave people those ideas and that permission to connect with, to use their art to connect with the outside of their studio walls. And I think I have to stand up for the artists here because I think it might be easier for authors because they have the words. They're word people. And it's a little harder for so many visual artists to come up with the words, which is why I love working with those artists. I love to help them find the words.
It is. It's a good point. You're right that we tend to talk with our paintbrushes, don't we, rather than with a pen, and that can be harder. I just hope I don't want to put anybody off. You don't have to start with 126 pages every month. Trust me, you can start very small and maybe just. But I think interviewing another artist, I think that can be really interesting. That connection that you make, and you can both learn from each other so many different things. So you could start really small just with that.
It's very encouraging. Before I let you go, what is coming up for you besides the next edition of your magazine?
Obviously, yeah. Well, I'm busy working on commissions still. I've tended to, when we first started here, I would run my own pop-up gallery every year. But I found more and more that I moved into commissions for clients, which is an easier way of working, I have to say. And I've got another book bubbling away on the computer as well. So that will keep me busy for a while. I think we've been here quite a while now, and I think I've found a nice balance where I can paint and do commissions for clients. I can do Snapshot every month. I can write gently, but I don't feel any pressure anymore. And I think I appreciate that's a really privileged position to be in, both financially and creatively, that I don't feel forced into doing something. I can choose the projects that I want to work on now. So I'm enjoying the balance, I think, at the moment of life, which is important as well. And yes, you're right. There's another snapshot ready to go out in another week and a half's time. It's almost done already as well.
Alyson, thank you so much for sharing. I think you are giving a lot of people a bunch of ideas right now.
Great. That's what I hope. That's lovely. Thank you very much for having me as well. Really enjoyed it.
Wasn't that cool? I just think it's so neat that she produces a magazine for her art and her husband's art and the community every month. And she loves it. She enjoys the process. It's not for everyone. I'm not saying you need to do it, but it's a cool idea. And she just shows how you can find a way to enjoy sharing your art with the world. Maybe it's not Instagram. Maybe it's not YouTube. Maybe it's not a monthly newsletter. Maybe it's a monthly magazine. To find the links for anything we mentioned or details that you might not have caught, check out the description below. If you would ever rather listen to the podcast rather than watch it here on YouTube, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Just look for The Art Biz. And hey, I hope you'll subscribe to this channel right here as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for allowing me to be part of your artist journey.